this tutorial, I'd like to continue a discussion of stem and leaf plots in Excel. What we're going to be doing is using the same data we've used for the previous two tutorials in stem and leaf plots in Excel. And you notice that in columns A and B are those data. Column A has student number from 1 down to 141. And what we see then in terms of column B is the ACT score for those 141 students. You also notice down towards the bottom here in cells B145 and B146, as I previously done, I found the minimum and maximum values. So the scores range from 16 to 33. Now going back to one way in which we could construct a stem and leaf plot here, since the smallest value is 16 and the largest value is 33, we can then think about our stems would be the tens place. What I've done here then is constructed a stem and leaf plot with the tens being the stems and leaves being the ones. And so we have then stems for 1, 2, and 3 representing 10, 20, and 30. Now when we do that, and I've already constructed this stem and leaf plot, what you can see then clearly is the vast majority of individuals fell into the category of 20 through to 29, or the stem for 2. And look at how many fall into that given category. Now when that's the case, then this stem and leaf plot does not really provide much of a picture as to the distribution that we see here, because there's just not enough variation across the stems. What we can do then to make it a little easier for us to see what pattern exists here in terms of the distribution of ACT scores for the set of data is we can split our stems into smaller units. Right now, a stem is associated with 9 leaves. Let's say we split each stem in half so that each stem has only 5 leaves. I'm going to first of all, though, click on the cell here where we have then the formula entered in. It looks like it's a short formula in one line, but if I click on this down arrow, you'll notice then that the formula actually takes up several different lines of information. So let me go ahead and keep that open for right now. I'm going to, in the way in which I wrote this formula out, I have a fixed reference for the data range, which is what we want to keep. So I'm going to go up here and copy this entire formula, and I'm going to paste it over here where I've already created then some of the, oops, I went too far, the information then for a split stem plot. Click, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let's go back and copy again. This formula I'm going to undo. Let me go ahead and just copy that cell. Move over here to where I have the information laid out already and do a paste. Now I'm going to double click here, and one thing you notice when I double click then, the stem we see here for Y5, 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 that's what we want. That's where the first stem is. If I scroll back over to where the data are, we should see then that the data range is highlighted appropriately, because that's how I wrote the formula here in the first version of the stem and leaf plot, where I used a fixed reference for the data range. Now, so let me go ahead and hit enter, and we see that there are individuals who have values of 16 and also 19 in this particular range. Now, what I want to do though is I want to copy this formula down into my other cells here. Let me go ahead and do that. And what I want to do though is I want to reduce the number of leaves associated with each stem. If I go back up to the very first one, you notice the smallest value is 16. So let me just go ahead and move the cursor right after then the equal sign in that formula for that cell. And I'm just going to delete until we get to the value of 15. And we'll see that then the value of 15 is where we start to repeat then the number 5. And right there it is, the number 5. the value of 15, we take then y5, which is the stem of 1, multiply it by 10, that means 10, add 5 to it, that's 15. So I'm going to hit enter, and what we see here, the formula now in this particular cell only includes the leaves for 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, which is exactly what I want. Let me split the stem for 20 into two parts. The first part will be 20 through 24, and the second will be 25 through 29. So let me click here in this cell. This is going to be the leaves for 24 through 29. I'll go and put my cursor right before the ampersand, where it then has repeat, open parenthesis, 5. So that starts then the leaves for 5. And I'm just going to delete then everything after that point. Now you notice then what is left here is only the information for 10, or actually it'd be 20 since y6 times 10, and the stem then in y6 is 2, 20, 21, 22, 23, and lastly 24, and that's what we want, so I'll hit enter. Now let's go ahead, and I want to delete all of the leaves 0 through 4 and start then with the leaf of 25 here for this data range, and I see it coming up. Repeat 5. So y7, which is 2 times 10, is 20 plus 5 is 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Hit enter, and now I've split my stem there, and as far as the stem for 3 represents 30, let's go ahead and delete all the information after 34. Hit enter, and that's what we have right here. If we go back to where we saw what the maximum value was then for our data range, it was a value of 33, so we don't need to have a stem for 35 through 39. So let's scroll back over to where we are. Now one of the things that you notice here, you see this little green triangle up here in the upper left hand corner of the cell for the leaves for 20 through 24. If you go ahead and click on that cell, you notice up pops this, it's an error message. I'm going to open up the error message, and what it says is it's an inconsistent formula. It didn't follow the pattern that we see in the other formulas before and after, which is what is to be expected, in that the cell above it were the stems, were the leaves for 15 through 19, and below it the leaves for 25 through 29, and this instead the leaves for 20 through 24. So it's an inconsistent formula. I know that. I just want to go ahead and click on that then to get rid of, I'll ignore the error rather, to get rid of that green diamond, and it was just an error message asking, are you sure this is what you want? Now I'll scroll over, and now this is better than what we saw before, a little bit better. Let me add some more space here. You'll see I've already laid out the parameters for the next version of this plot. This is a little better now, in that we can see the entire range. Oh, I got the error message here for this next cell. I'm going to go ahead and ignore that error, and there we have it. Okay, now what you notice here then, I can see the entire set of leaves for 20 through 24 and also through 25 through 29. So this is an improvement over just having stems that are associated with 10 leaves each. But still, we have a clustering in only 2 categories mainly. We don't get the sense of the distribution here across all the values we have. So what I want to do is split the stem even further. Here I split the stem so each stem is associated with 5 leaves. Let's now instead split the stems so that each stem is associated with 2 leaves. And that's what I started to lay out right here. If you recall, the very first value is 16. So I'm going to have 16, 17, 18, 19 will be the 2 stems here. So for the first stem, That's going to be associated with 16 and 17 for the leaves. The second stem will be 18 and 19 for the leaves. If we notice here then, the 5 stems I've got for the 20 range, the first stem will be 20 and 21, the next 22 and 23, 24 and 25, 26 and 27, and then 28 and 29. So each stem will have 2 leaves associated with that. And then for 30, that range, given that the highest value was 33, I need a stem associated with 30 and 31, and then 32 and 33. So I'm splitting my stems up so that each stem will be associated with 2 leaves. Let's go back to what we have initially or I'll go back to the previous stem plot where we broke the leaves down into 5. I'm going to copy that formula and I'm going to bring it over and just paste it where it has where the first leaves will be. Now keep in mind what this has here. Right now it has 5 leaves associated with the stem, and that's going to be 5 through 9 multiplied by the number, and I'll just double click here. We see AK5, 1 times 10 plus 5, 1 times 10 plus 6, all the way through to 1 times 10 plus 9. Given that the data starts at 16 and each stem is associated with 2 values, I'm just going to go ahead here and delete all the information up until and including, oops, I went too far there. Let me go back a little bit. I won't do it, so I'll go ahead and just continue to delete this information, and I'll delete it so I only have 2 leaves left. And if I'm going to stop right here before this repeat, and right there we have 8 and 9 associated with it. What I'm going to do though is change this to a value of 6 and this to 6. I'll change this to 7 and now this to 7. And so what that's going to have now is going to be a value of AK5, which is right here. 1 times 10 plus 6 is 16. 1 times 10 plus 7 is 17. Whenever there's a 16, it's going to report a 6. Whenever the case has a 17, it's going to report a 7. That's exactly what I want. I'll hit enter. So now we see only 2 leaves are associated with the first stem. Let's go ahead, click and drag this down. And since I have a fixed reference for my data range, I can do that. I do want my range for the stems to be relative reference, which is what we have right now. But now I want this second stem for the 10s to include the information for 18, and also I'll report a 9 whenever there is a case with 19 for an ACT score. And that's what we have right there. Let's copy this down a little further, and let's do the same sort of change here for this stem. I'll double click and you can see again we have the data reference that is constant because it's a fixed reference. AK7, it's a stem of 2 times 10 plus 8 is 28. Well, I want this very first stem to be associated with the leaves 20 and 21. And whenever there's a 20, I want to report a 0. So I'll change this 10 plus 8 to 10 plus 0, and then I'll report a 1 for every time that it is 20 plus 1. And right there we see the leaves that fall into that category. I'll bring this down one more, and now I'm going to change this to be associated with the leaves 2 and 3. Hopefully you see the pattern I'm taking here. And now let's go ahead and copy this down one more. And I'm going to change this to 4. And then leaves associated with 5. Copy it down again. This is going to be the leaves of, what's that going to be? 6. And then 7. I'll report a 7 every time a case has a value, whoops, a 7. Every time a case has a value of 27 for the ACT score. and I need to copy down one more because I have two more leaves in the 20s range, and they're going to be associated with the values of 28, and I'll put a 9 every time there is a 29 in the data. Okay? And now you already see how we're spreading then the values in the range of 20 across now 5 cells instead of just 2 cells. I'll bring this down here, and let's do the same thing for the 30s. I'll start off with zeros for the leaves, and then 1. So this will be now 30 and 31. Copy it down one more, and this is going to be 32 and 33. And 32 is going to have, and 33 rather, is the highest value we see within this data range. And right there we have it. I've split the stems into 2 leaves for each stem, and now I can see much clearly what the distribution looks like for these data points.